Okay, so we have our painting set up, our digital painting, our reference, even some color and compositional reference here. We've set up our painting in 3 stages. First, we kind of sketched it out looking at the reference. Then I did some just grayscale value studies with a softer, less opaque brush. And then I did a speed painting on top where I'm stealing colors and using a customized brush, which is nested in my brush presets here. And I modified the brush using my shape dynamics and texture so that as I paint with it, it gives me a varied shape. And I can use that at different opacities as well. But at the end of the day, I want it to look like a painting. So I'm going to take the sketch off pretty early and only use it to kind of define some of the hard edge shapes that I need. And I'll just keep building on the values. And there are so many different styles of painting. I might decide to outline certain things. Who knows? But what I wanted to show is before I just had the swatch view here, so I could choose colors from the ones I'd already used, very easily. Now you can create your own swatches. So now that I kind of have a palette, I might paint these colors off to the side like so. The ones I especially like. Each one is unique. And I can, of course, steal them from sources. Now, I prefer doing that to just trying to mix my own color, because they tend to be way too saturated and strange looking. So look at that yellow versus this yellow. And that kind of puts me off. So I like to take them from existing artwork, or even from the portrait itself if I want more believable skin tones and shadows, right? So you can create your own palette. You don't really need the swatches to be there at all, because you can always just steal from yourself, holding down Option with the brush tool, and paint with these different colors. But this navigator is increasingly going to become really important. The navigator allows you to zoom in, and if I zoom in, I can see the actual texture of these custom brushes, which make it look more like there's a canvas underneath, which is nice. And it allows me to move around when I start doing details. And I can do it on the different subjects. So if I'm going to work on James Joyce's eye, I can look at it up close, and I have the painting up close. And that might help me make better decisions about how to paint it. And I can still steal colors. And I can modify my brush. And I can do all that good stuff, right? And you'll see it here in the navigator in real space, because as you're working, you don't want to ever just be caught in looking at the details. Because look, that eye is way too big right now. But that's a good beginning. Instead, you always want to be aware of how it's affecting the overall picture. If we go back to digital coloring and what we talked about back with the spot illustration, digital painting is very similar, except it doesn't have that clean line work to work behind. So we start with a sketch and we jump immediately to basically doing color holds, painting on top of the sketch, and painting with maybe full spectrum color, not limited to just variations on one tone. And the beauty of that is because it's painting and not just coloring, I can go nuts with different brushes, different opacities, different blends, different colors, and I can make it not just a digital coloring of a lemon, but like an impressionist painting of a lemon. And I can have blue and purple shadows And so I want you to really kind of embrace your creativity here. And if you want to mess with that even more than just overlaying different brush colors, within your brush presets, you can take any one of these brush presets and set the brush settings and customize them. So I have shape dynamics here, and it's rotating it with pin pressure and with my tilt of the brush. But I can also even set it to have color dynamics, where using the pin pressure or using the tilt of the brush, I'll probably do it for tilt, or maybe rotation, let's try that. It will change the colors in between my foregrounds and backgrounds. I can almost paint with camouflage there. I can make the saturation change from being highly saturated to less saturated, which you'd see more in a high opacity. I can play with the purity, how strong the colors are, with their brightness, just all kinds of ways. Ooh. So, painting really can be this really creative act that goes way beyond just coloring, even with all the special effects that we then can add. I could even, with digital painting, do things like mechanical halftones and then paint on top of that. So I'm really going to experiment with my James Joyce portrait. So now what do I do? Well, I have my brush. I have it set to play mostly with the background color. So let me change that a little bit. You always want to have a predictable tool so you know what it's doing. Yeah, so now the harder I press, the more it will go into the foreground color. But maybe I don't want that quite yet, and I just want to use one color at a time still. But these are all options I have. And remember, I always have my history. We set our history to record at least 200 history states, because when you start using paint strokes, they start to take up a lot. Okay, now before I get close up like this, I want to look at the overall picture, and I want to just paint, just have some fun painting. Slightly lower opacity, maybe not quite so big a brush. And maybe looking at the swatches for now. And I want to see what kind of color diversity I can get, what kind of marks I can get. And just really push this portrait in different ways. So it's always good, in my experience for digital painting, to work on the whole of the image first. Kind of get rid of all the whites you don't want. In fact, this blank white now is maybe a little bit of a problem. So I might make a new layer on top of that and fill it with middle gray. And why 50% gray is so helpful is it shows you that all of your light colors are also a choice. So you're not just using the default of the white paper underneath. Because not all light colors are the same. I can go pink, I can go yellow, I can go bluish. And at this stage, I'm actually painting underneath, like using light pastels on toned paper. You can split your colors into as many layers as you like. I can start using some real skin tones if I want, so it doesn't look too alien maybe. You just have to get started and make some decisions. Now, because I customized my brush, if I zoom in anywhere, I'll see all that texture. And because my brush is rotating as I use it with the shape dynamics, it doesn't look too copy-pasty, even when I'm just painting with a flat color. But especially when I start overlapping different colors, at lower opacities, I can start to get some nice effects. And even though this is a hard-edged brush, because I made it myself, and I didn't include any soft edges in the brush I made, I can still use lower opacities to kind of blend it, have it work. Now, if you're not able to find the color you want from your swatches or from stealing from other sources, then you click on your foreground or background options, and then you can use the color picker here to really saturate your color or get something stronger. But I would recommend then painting a version of it for yourself up on a top layer so that you can use it other places. And once you've built up enough color variations, you're in good shape. And again, I'm not doing any of the accessories. I'm not doing his glasses or his mustache until I'm settled with the placement of all these other features. I'm looking at the highlights on his face. I'm looking at his wrinkles. And I'm trying to be, in this instance, pretty experimental with my color choices. Now, if I add the value study underneath that, it will just give it a little bit of dimension. And the sketch, that will kind of keep me honest to the basic shapes I saw. That's especially helpful in terms of the silhouette that I want to show. I was trying something there, but don't think so.